Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. What's up, nerds, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you so much for joining us tonight. This is actually a little bit of a new thing that I'm doing here. I've never really had a stream like this, but just for the special occasion, I just wanted to make sure I show some love and promote something that is very special to me, and hopefully will be very special to you as well. Tonight's guest, he's a poet, he's an author, he's a professor, and a philanthropist. Kind of starts with a P. I mean, it does start with a P, but it's not phonetically. Well, my guest tonight is Shingi Mavima. How you doing today, Shingi?
I'm doing well, man. Thank you so much for having me, Nine. It's always a pleasure. I've been here once or twice before.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
it's always
they clone Tyrone, right?
yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
They cloned. Say they killed him. They cloned him.
Yeah, he's very much still alive,
Right.
and
Yeah.
he's alive everywhere across the country.
Yeah.
Yeah. So go and check that one now too if you haven't seen that in that live stream. That was definitely a good time. But tonight we're actually talking about your new book, The Leak.
Indeed, man. Indeed. Yeah, we got a new book out, The Leak, available everywhere you get books, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. Shout out to all Zimbabwean fans. You can find it at Book Fantastic if you're watching from Zimbabwe. But indeed, and I'll be doing a series of book readings around the Midwest and wherever folks will have me. So I might even be coming to your neck of the woods. But yeah, The Leak is an episodic novella. It's a quick read. And from what I hear, people like it. So I'm very glad to be here talking about it.
That's what's up. That's what's up. And I actually do have one of your other books here, and that's Pashena.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of casually have these, just these hanging around here, But with Pashena, it was a not episodic. What would you call it? A linear novel based in Zimbabwe, loosely based about your early childhood life, right?
Indeed.
Now, how would you say that The Leak differs from Pashena when you say it's episodic?
In a nutshell, first off, I think even as linear as Pashena was, it still lent itself to being pretty episodic because I pride myself, each writer has a signature, and maybe it hasn't fully developed or fully availed itself in this way. But one of the things that I pride myself in as a writer, or how I not pride, but distinguish myself as a writer, is in being able to, in talking about the banalities, right? The day-to-day moments in life that constitute life as a whole, right? I'm not big on big bombastic that shapes. I'm always, it's
more slice of life.
Exactly, yeah, that missed parking spot and how that frustrated you and how that to the next thing. That's sort of like my style. So in that way, they are similar. They do similar things. You know what I'm saying? But I think the main difference between Pashena and The Leak, one is The Leak is a very fictional story. It's still rooted in stories that that my friends and family tell. It's rooted in some things that I read. It's rooted in tropes and phenotypes that I'm familiar with. But indeed, it's a fictional story. So even the approach to it was a little bit different, right? It's different when you are creating these characters from your head, from your imaginings, as opposed to, even if it's loosely based on John, if it's loosely based on Susie, you know,
Mhm.
you can go, that would take you 80% of the way there.
Right.
But I'm conjuring up characters that, that have lived lives that are as foreign to me as they are to the reader sometimes, but I still
Right.
get inside their psyche, see what their motivations are, how they would move in certain situations, and so forth. So that's the big difference. And also because so the other difference, where the episodes may differ a little bit. Remember, I said I don't really like big, like bombastic type moments.
Mhm.
It's a little bit harder, at least at this stage, for me, uh, to create something entirely fantastical and not have bombastic moments. It's easier for me to
Yeah.
tell my life story that way because I,
Mhm.
over it or whatever, different things like that. You know what I mean? Whereas,
Right.
yeah, it has to be big, right? It has to be building up to something. If I'm creating it out of thin air, so to speak. So yeah, those are some of the differences, and we can unpack them a little bit more a bit later. But yeah, that's immediately what stands out as a big difference, indeed.
Yeah, absolutely. And for everybody that is watching right now, thank you so much to everybody that's tuning in. Um, uh, I want to introduce you a bit more because you are also a professor of African Studies at University of Toledo, right? Tell me about that and your kind of journey there.
Oh yeah, so that's a good question, and it's one that's always pretty fascinating, right? Because and it's a conversation that I have a lot with fellow Africans or fellow Zimbabweans, even childhood friends.
Hmm.
That it almost took me because I came to the U.S. just before I started college. But in many ways, I'm not saying this is the case for everybody, but it does kind of speak to the way in which education systems around the world, particularly in the colonized spaces, where we're very have been tailored to be Eurocentric, even in the post-colonial era. I say that to say, like, I learned the majority of what I teach African history in particular, but the
Hmm.
majority of that I learned once I got to the US, right? Because, but yet I could tell you everything about the Roman Empire and the Vikings
Yeah,
and the advent of the colonialists by name, right? The Cecil John Roses and
yeah,
John Moffat's in detail, right? In such detail that my knowledge of African history and its nitty gritties and the timelines paled in comparison. But once I got
mhm,
here, I'm studying international relations and early on, minoring in African American and African studies of the strength of I just needed a couple more credits for that. Then
yeah,
after that fact, you know what I mean? I kind of just dawned on me that, I really enjoyed this. Ended up getting my PhD from Michigan State.
Michigan State, of course. Yeah,
Yeah. So, in the degree was in African American and African studies. So it's an interdisciplinary degree where a lot of people are historians, some people are sort of film, different things, right? Literary critics,
yeah,
um, whatever. Social scientists of different sorts. But my emphasis was more historical. So after
mm,
that, I started teaching at the University of Toledo, where I teach again African history, but specializing in Southern African history. So a lot of these things dovetail together. They're inspired by the same. It's not another thing that I do, right? It's another aspect to it's another part of the whole as opposed to being a whole different thing, right? Because
mhm,
understanding of tropes in which how Africa has been written about, right? By
mhm,
studying the history of it, it influences the ways in which I describe spaces and people. Even writing itself, you know what I mean? Because for a long time, the deficiency, quote unquote, the inferiority of
mhm,
people of African descent, right? When it would be argued by the colonialists, by by other racist sentiments, one of the things that people would point to is like, look, a lot of these places don't even have rich literary traditions. You know what I mean? Because as you know,
mm,
some of the places on the continent, many of them had strong oral traditions, maybe not literary traditions in the same form as we understand literacy. So for a long time, that was
Mhm.
used to say like, "Oh, these guys are not even as smart as us. Look, they don't even write," you know,
Mhm.
which again is nonsense, right?
Absolutely.
But I say that to say the very act of writing and telling our own stories is definitely in keeping with the desire to rectify that historical erasure that we as Africans have been subject to in the modern era. Indeed.
Mm, mm. And then you are now a professor's. That's a long journey, and you're teaching at Toledo, right?
Mhm, 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 mhm.
And so I guess one of my biggest questions is where do you find the time to write a book on top of that?
Man, that's a very good question. In many ways, right? Like I'm saying, like, the point I'm making about it not being something else, but being an extension of this work. There's gonna be times when I've been reading scholarly works all day,
Yeah.
right? Maybe all week. Maybe I'm working on a project for months on end, right?
Hmm.
Then I need some reprieve from it. What do I want to do some stuff that I'm not having to put down in Chicago style reference format. I want to do
Hmm.
some, I want to read something that is not about this genocide or whatever my students are working on at the time, right? Which is all very important work. But sometimes I just need to let loose a little bit. So on one hand, it's an outlet, and it's an outlet that I've had since I was, third, fourth grade. Always be out there writing stuff. So there is that. It's part of the same thing. Then we have time, man. I think like it's one thing
Hmm.
to imagine if you don't do that thing. It's one thing to imagine that uh it takes a lot of time. But what do people do, right? Nine, many times he's working his 9 to 5, and he has 2 YouTube channels that is in charge of. To me, that sounds crazy, right? To even think about that, right? Uh Moms just came in right now. She had a Toastmasters thing at 7, then the whole day at work, then Bible study, and then now it's 9
Well,
p.m.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know how mom does any
You
of
know what I
that.
mean? So it's if it's your things, it's your things. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
that's
that's
yeah, your life
okay.
adapts to your past
Right.
responsibilities, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, you heard it here first, folks. Your life adapts to the passions. If you want to write that book, if you want to get that screenplay out,
Yeah.
you can find that time.
Mhm,
And hopefully you do because we love to see it. We definitely love
mhm.
to see it. So getting into the leak, can you tell us more about like the main character and kind of the structure of the story here?
Man, so I love this main character. I love my characters, but I really love this guy. His name is Kuda. And I loved Kuda as we started telling the story. I knew some of the situations that he was gonna be in before I knew
Hmm.
who he was. But I've really loved this character. But here's the thing that in retrospect, when I got the published book, and recently when I've been looking at it, I haven't read it through since I got my hands back on it
Mm,
after it got published. But the bits that I'm reading, one thing that I really appreciate about the complexity of this character is when I wrote the story, right? There are so many elements of him that are rooted in my person, in me. You know what I mean?
okay.
So, for example, an experience like when he grew up as a kid, he lived in Manikala, in the eastern part of Zimbabwe. Then for high school, under different circumstances to me, of course, but he had moved in to Harare, the capital, and to a bougie neighborhood. Uh, and even lived with his uncle and aunt and cousins for a while.
Okay.
That part, there's a bit of overlap with that, right? I mean, again, very simplistically, I never lived in the rural areas per se. This guy did, but I'm saying like this. Some of those moves that I can understand because I kind of. But then the thing is, I reread it this time. I realized that in so many ways, other characters in the book probably resemble me more than this guy does, including people who hurt him. You know, which was such a
Mm,
it blew my mind that
mm,
how we see ourselves, right? But when we step back and we look at the totality of it all, it's like, wait, you actually have more in common with this condescending guy who told him to do one, two, three things to make his life better when he knew nothing about his struggle. It got me thinking, like, I wonder how many times I actually do that, you know? So, but yeah, the guy could mid 20s living in Harare in urban Zimbabwe. Um, Very sharp, very bright, but has just been through a lot. He's been orphaned. He had moved to the city, then started developing a bit of grew close to his cousins. Then they had to leave the country. As you know, if you're from Zimbabwe, you know that every single family has somebody
oh
or
yeah.
members of the family that have left for the
Hmm.
UK or the US or Australia. Definitely
Hmm.
South Africa at least. So that kind of set him back as well. And now he's holding on to the prize. So this is why, and me and the publishers had a nice back and forth for a little bit trying to decide on the cover, because they'll drop this prototype and I'll be like, nah, that's not him. That's not him. And
Hmm.
that's not where he lives, you know. They
Yeah.
don't have, I've kind of
The
explained.
concept of what that Zimbabwean lifestyle or architecture
Yeah.
even would
And I won't
come
even
across on the
say,
page. Hmm.
so there's part of it which is just the but they know that the publishers themselves, shout out to Carnelian Heart Publishing, they are
Mm.
Zimbabweans themselves. They're just based in the UK now, so they know a lot
Okay.
of the tropes. But there's a very specific, when you imagine where I can say like what do sort of apartments in Chicago look like? That's one
Hmm.
thing. But does Nine look like he would live in a place like this? Well, that's
Hmm.
that's a
That's a
different,
whole
like,
nother thing. Right.
yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
with that back and forth,
And then you're getting into like different parts of that towns and like different cultures like that are all can be densely packed and shift
yeah,
majorly
right.
when you go to Zimbabwe too. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And think about this. Think about what an apartment where I wish I'd send some of the other prototypes here, but and that's all behind this. But I'm saying like what somebody who has given up on life, right?
mm,
Living in the exact same kind of space that you live in, right?
mm-hmm,
Their place looks very different. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm,
So so indeed, the mess, right down to the detail of the mess in the house. I was like, yeah,
mm-hmm,
no, those things would not be on his floor. He would not have empty plates of food, right? Like messy food on the floor.
mm-hmm.
He's not there yet. No,
Right,
his shirt would not be tattered. That looks like see, he's got the watch on.
right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
His pride is holding on. He's got to shape up. Like, yeah, I don't want
yeah,
him to be, So yeah, so just somebody who's going through it, man, but he hasn't deserted his pride.
yeah,
He's a little cynical,
yeah.
but in a defiant cynicism, if that makes sense. Like, yeah,
Okay.
I'll show them. That sort of mentality.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Okay. So he's trying to he's trying to lock in and get into the bag.
Yes, right, but also do it on his own terms, because
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that this is I think this is not a particular spoiler because it happens pretty early on in the story. He is offered the opportunity to move to the US, and
Mm-hmm.
his cousin and friends have started some company, and he can come in just doing entry level internship type stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the first major decision he has to make. Like, yo, I fought my whole life to get out of this guy's shadow, right?
You're right.
I'm not about to just go back into it overseas, but at the same time, what if this is all there is to this? You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
That's the big
mhm,
break. And so his life is, is sort of it's sort of guiding him through that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, with all due respect to his agency, but he's also watching for
mhm,
how things are moving on around him to see what he should do next. Indeed.
mhm.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay. And so when you're saying that it's going to be episodic as well, do are we seeing him as a young kid and then he grows into adulthood, or
Mm,
uh,
so those are some of my favorite moments right there, right? Not a lot of it, but yeah, there are those. There's a great bit where we're seeing his experiences when he first moves to the school. This scene, I'm sure it'll be one that I'll be doing at readings, and it's I really just had so much fun describing that because there's a little bit of Schadenfreude, maybe a little bit when you're as a writer when you're giving some people their comeuppance, you know what I'm saying? And
yeah,
you're imagining who some of those people may have been in your life. You're like, oh yeah, take that, but you're making all this,
yeah.
and you get away with that. So there's some scenes from high school. One of my really favorite scenes is there's a crew called they call themselves the Taliban, and this is also leaning into ways in which my American audience might get a kick out of this or might be bothered by this, but just to show that the world is bigger and maybe seeing things differently from how you see it. But if
Okay.
you remember reading Trevor Noah's book Born a
Yeah,
Crime,
Born a
remember
Crime, yep.
he talks about that his friend Hitler. You know what I'm saying? Because yeah,
Oh,
in
yeah,
different contexts, you know what I'm
yeah.
saying? People might be looking at him like, oh yeah, he's a villain, but a villain with the distance that some people might talk about Thanos in other spaces. You know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah,
You're not the just on a street level, though. I'm not talking about this like as if it's a
right,
thought
yeah.
out thing. So I'm
He's
talking
just that
about that.
guy, yeah.
So the like nicknames like Taliban, in the early 2000s in Zimbabwe, they were all over the place, right? Like the Taliban
Mhm,
crew to say like that's your gang name or things like that. So
right.
there's this group that calls themselves the Taliban crew, um, with a leader nicknamed Osama, who again Osama is not even Taliban, but in any case, you
Right,
throw it all in there, right? As you're
yeah.
imagining these things. But they also dress very much like Dipset would, right? So a lot of
Okay,
a lot of
yeah.
just cultural hodgepodge things in there, and indeed, folks would dress like that. But you know how Dipset dressed? Like they
With
lived in New York City,
right.
heavy coats and everything, things that have no place in subtropical Africa, right? But we'll rock it. That's what looks fresh.
Yeah,
So I got this
right.
big ass FUBU jacket on, you know, in like blazing weather. So so in one of those incidents, this guy Kuda, who's just moved from the rural areas, is not hip to the hop or to even why this group would be calling themselves the Taliban like that. It's not stuff he's necessarily paid much attention to.
Okay,
But as he's getting bullied, um, there's this woman who's a vendor. She sells fruit by the by the street side, and she recognizes the kid Osama as somebody that she used to nanny for back in the day, and she ends up calling him out by his government name. Hey, Enoch, are you still wearing your sheets? Right? And she kind of just embarrasses him in front of his boys, and that's sort of like how he gets his come up. And so it's little things like
got
that.
him, got him.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
So that's such a and it's the kind of thing that would happen in these communities where people are very invested in each other. Like the vendor doesn't know this kid, but she knows him because it comes to he buys fruits from her regularly. Uh,
mhm,
yeah, so it's little moments like that, but also just like you know little moments, right? Where there's a moment when he goes to meet with his cousin, the guy was visiting from the US for coffee, right? And for him,
okay,
he's so annoyed. Think about that. He's so annoyed by the fact that this guy asked them to meet him at this mall for coffee, which in the US, for example, that's such a low
Normal.
level, like a very accessible meeting to arrange, right?
Exactly.
But in a culture where people don't necessarily grab coffee on that level or like just that regularly, and also bearing in mind that this guy doesn't work and he doesn't spend time at that bougie mall at all, you know. So it's really
Hmm.
just bothering, like, yo, why would he ask me to go meet him over there, right? But
Okay.
for him, for this other guy, of course, it's what makes sense. Where else am I gonna? I don't need, you know. But so you see that episode, then the full and when he walks in that time, he gets a lot of respect from like the security guard. Ah, sir, over this way, and he's like, wow, this is nice. But the following time, he goes back there, you know, later on when he's by himself, is kind of treated again poorly by folks, and just like, oh man, they must have seen that I was with this guy who's very obviously not from here, and they're phoning it in. So it's a little
Uh,
moments like that just help paint yeah,
yeah.
a
Yeah.
narrative. You know what I mean? Indeed.
And that's very interesting too, because when you're trying to I mean, obviously, like, this is being published everywhere, right?
Mhm.
It's available everywhere, but also, you're doing this book tour and you're going around the Midwest. You're saying,
Right.
uh, do you run into a complication when you're trying to actually, like, sell this to a more American audience? Do you think there is a little bit of a barrier to entry? Um,
Not per se, right?
mhm.
I think the struggle that you find is really just you know people who are into reading. You know what I'm saying? I think that's probably like a
Yeah.
bigger barrier than most other things. But I think most
Yeah.
people are fascinated by things like that, right? Because
Mm.
a lot of times, for the same reason that I think there's two maybe reasons that we really love movies. I mean more, but I'm saying
Mhm.
two that are relevant to this one. Either you find something very relatable, right, in a way,
Mhm.
which is why things like chick flicks and things like that, and have a a staple. You know what I mean? But on the other
Yeah.
hand, we also want things that are nothing like like a sense of justice as administered by the
Yeah.
god, a la the Avengers and stuff like. Yeah, let's see that.
Yeah.
Oh, these guys are sending cars into space. I don't know what's going on with the fast, but something. You know what I mean?
That's very right.
That's
Yeah.
also fun to see, right? Or
Yeah.
even on a more without being so bombastic, but just like, yeah, Rocky, right? Yeah, yeah. Just to so there's that. So I think a lot of people like stories that have tropes that they can relate to, but also
Mhm.
they represent something that is foreign to them, right? Which is why.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily find that as a barrier. I might have to that, but we do the readings, and then I usually have to explain certain things, uh,
Mhm.
just to say like, oh yeah, in this context, this is what this means. A lot of it doesn't stump me. I think I'm just, it's part of the course. I'll tell you one question, but from Pashena that stumped me though. That I was
Mhm.
like, wow, I've never actually thought about why this was. But when I was a kid, when I was, I'm talking about 4 or 5.
Pashena.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
That's
it's in many parts it's autobiographical, right? But I when we were kids, we were outside, you know what I'm saying, badass kids and
outside. Yeah.
yeah. But I remember it being very gendered for me. I don't think
Yeah.
it was the case for everybody else, but so when one of my friends, shout out, she just got a PhD maybe like a month ago, Dr. Nerly, if you ever watched this. But her daughter was reading it, and her daughter was, oh, she might have been reading it to her daughter, who again is, was very young. I can't imagine should have been more than 6, 7 at the time. Then she was like,
Okay.
"Yeah, but why doesn't it play with the girls?" You know what I mean?
Ah. Ah.
Because again, her reality, like playing at that level, has never been gendered. So
Uh-huh.
I was like, you know what? I have never thought to question that. You know what I'm saying? For me, it's just how it was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So so yeah, but other than that, most moments when people are like, oh my god, you used to eat what? Like, yeah, man, yeah, throw some grasshoppers on that, boy. That was my stuff growing up.
Right.
But, I mean, a lot of people just appreciate it for the difference that it is, but also for the commonalities, right? The fact that
Mm,
our ideas of family, our ideas of making it, our ideas of ego, right? Those are
mm,
universal experiences, and
mm.
trying to figure that out. Indeed, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. We got some comments here, and we got 26 people watching right now.
Wow.
Shout out to all of y'all that are tuning in.
Yeah.
Again, we are talking to Shingi Mavima, Dr. Shingi Mavima, Professor Shingi Mavima about the new book, The Leak.
Indeed.
Um, and we have a question here from Filmage. Do you ever run into any gatekeepers while trying to publish? Really
Man,
good question.
shout out to Film Age Studios, man. So honestly, the publishing part of things
Mhm.
is by far my least favorite part of the process.
Yeah.
I do not like that at all. I mean, let me put it this way: once you find a publisher and they are good and you're working with them, that part is great. But I'm saying the part between moving from writing your story to getting it published, it's a freaking nightmare. Unless, of course, if you've built a name up for yourself and you have an agent and you are, or
Yeah.
you're, the equivalent of being on a label, so to speak. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? Uh, y-
But
you
you're
know,
running this independent though,
yeah, yeah,
basically.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, um, and hopefully, if you develop a relationship with one publisher, it's going back to them later on will be great. But I've had the dare I say misfortune, and this is not the Shingi curse, by the way. This is just how the, the industry goes. But my last two publishers, love them to death, House Capacity for Pashena, then Sugar Run Publishing for Mirage of Days Old. They've both since gone out of business. You know what I mean?
Ooh.
So that means that well, I don't know if they've gone out of business, but they've definitely suspended operations as at this moment. But what does that mean? Well, um, it means that whatever relationship we had been building, whatever lessons we've learned together, uh, you know, I have to learn them again with somebody else because everybody does things differently. So, to the extent that these folks are gatekeepers, I mean, I run into gatekeepers, and I know exactly that's what's going on. It's tough for me to say because typically when you get a rejection, it's just either they just don't respond or they'll just say like, "Oh, we're not picking up folks right now." So I haven't really gotten into the politics of it to see what it is that maybe they're not picking up on. They're bigger, more established. Because I think without tooting my own horn, so I think like my writing is as good as, or at least deserves some feedback that'll say like we didn't pick you up
Right.
on this. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not rubbish. You know what I mean? Um so yeah, I'm not, if I run into gatekeepers, it hasn't been vocalized to me out and out in that way. One thing that you always run into, not so much with publishers, but with audiences and different spaces, is sometimes there's a push to the tragic African story.
Mm.
If that makes sense. People, particularly in the Western world, they love that. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Right.
It might
Right.
just be cathartic or whatever. I don't know what it is.
It's a little bit of a trauma porn type of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
So sometimes if your story is not all that, you know what I mean, or is not overwhelmingly that, and again, a lot of the stories that folks talk about escaping, as refugees in in war-torn spaces or struggling through, are very, very, very valid stories, and by God, we should never cease in telling them. But also, these are the experiences, just like any other place, right? Like we can
Mhm.
admit, we can look at a story like The Notebook and concede that's an all-American story. But so what? So is The Wolf of Wall Street, right? And so is
Right.
Straight out of Compton, right? Like there's so many
Mhm.
things that these are all very American stories, but just allow it.
Mhm.
But I don't think other parts of the world have necessarily been accorded that same liberty, right?
Mhm.
Same space to say like, hey, today I want to talk about this person who was in Mutare and they are bipolar. What?
Yeah.
No, no, no. Unless they're like some warlord you don't want to hear about.
Right. Yeah.
So I feel like that's something that I struggle with getting some people pick on. I wouldn't necessarily say they are gatekeepers, but maybe there is a psychological barrier there that I'm pushing back against. Indeed.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. And you know what Film Age's comment actually made me think about is this movie right here that's actually up for an Oscar. And that's this right
Ah,
here, that American Fiction, right? It's clearly about how this guy is struggling to publish a book, but it's not black enough, right?
wow.
It ain't black enough. Yeah, might check that out. It's an Oscar thing. We might do an Oscar pre-show, just going
Mm,
over all of the things later this week. So tune in for that if you're interested. I'll be on Nine Nerd Yards and Nerds at Night, and also the Drunk Panthers. Just a little bit of housekeeping there for you. But also just wanted to you know just wanted to, for a point of reference to a lot of people that may be watching. This is Zimbabwe here. It's just so we can kind of get so it's like the southern. It's not like quite South Africa, but it's right there. You
yeah,
know what I mean?
I admit.
Um, so that's kind of the frame of reference of where this book is taking place
Mhm.
all over the world. And yeah, thank you so much for Film Age's comment there. And again, there's now almost 30 of you watching. If you have any questions for Shingi about the book and about being an author, or even just about uh, his experience as being a professor,
Yeah.
please let us know. Put it in the comments.
Mhm.
Now, uh, can you also talk about, because your first run-in with publishing actually is with your poetry. Is
Yes,
that
yes, yes.
correct? Right.
Indeed. Yeah. So altogether now, if I'm being frank, right? You know what I mean? I've published four efforts. The leak is my fourth effort that I've put out. So sometimes it's the reason why I say technically is because
You
the
can't
first,
even get one of these. These are out of print.
yeah,
These are out of
yeah,
print.
I have a couple of copies with me, but for the most
Mhm.
part, yeah. I'm thinking of I have to see if I can get a hold of those publishers, because if I can get back those files, I'll put them out myself. It's just that I don't have those files, and it
Okay.
hangs on one, what you call this, a forward that was written by one of my mentors, uh, scholar extraordinaire, Dr. Geneva Smith, the man that
Okay.
So I say that in keeping faithful to the book that she endorsed, I would want to republish it as it was. You know what I mean? Because you know, uh, because there's a lot of shout outs that are relevant to how the book
Yeah.
looks, and so once I get those, maybe I'll put that back up. But yeah, so the first effort, Homeward Bound, remember that?
Hmm.
This was back in 2011, 2012. I put it together, mostly put it together, but I'd been writing poetry for a while. But we put out the book sometime in 2012. I had so that was an entirely self-published effort, and I'll talk
Hmm.
about what I mean by entirely self-published as opposed to other sort of how that's different from this other stuff. That I found Amazon as a platform at the time. It was called Create Space. I don't know what I think it might be called Author Central now. But anyway, they've
Hmm.
got the space in which you can self-publish. So if you're really just trying to get your name out there or try practice your chops and everything, I really recommend that. You know what I'm saying? You can put it out there by yourself,
Hmm.
and sort of some people do really well with that, but at the very least, it's something. So we did that. I put that out there, Homeward Bound. There you see, this one is still available. Again, it's an Amazon product, so it's still out there. But I had a
Hmm.
few friends submit most of the poems were by me. But with a few friends as well. Shout out to my man Eric Gumbi in Zimbabwe, Terry Mangoma, my cousin Ru, and my other cousin Taku as well, who sent us one or two poems each that supplemented my own. I was learning, man. I put that whole thing together. Um, Friend of ours, Lee Latella, took that picture. I did a photo shoot with them.
Oh yeah, shout out to Leela Tella.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this. I haven't thought about him in like years. Then my man Derek, one of my really good friends, he ended up designing the cover. So I put it out. When you get it, the poetry is good, of course, but you can tell that these aren't professional publishers, the typesetting and whatnot. So
Yeah,
that was fun. I learned a lot that way. I learned a lot about, I also learned that I don't really care too much for putting together books. You know what I'm saying? I just want to write.
yeah,
I don't care for that.
right.
So
Yeah.
so that's the first time I did that. And I did a couple readings here and there. So I was learning a lot. And a lot of that money, though, those early days, because I'd also just founded our nonprofit Clubhouse International. So a lot of the
Mm,
money that I got from those readings, right, went to supporting the early efforts of that organization. People sometimes would pay me like $100 per book, things like that. We had a few of those. I think somebody paid 500 at one point, and that's what funded our mission. Nine is scrolling through it right now, but we send kids in Zimbabwe, in my old neighborhood in Mutare, to school. We do different things like that. So that was great.
mhm. A lot of the members of Nine Nerd Yards have actually donated,
Mm,
and we still may be doing another campaign later with another video drop. But yeah, last year you guys sent about 4 kids to school.
yeah.
You guys did that. That's nothing to scoff about. Like
Right, right,
you,
right.
you guys
Well,
actually sent some kids to school.
to when we say that, we say like funded them for the year, right? You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Because
Right.
it's not that much. Because yeah, no, we are ever grateful to Nine Nerd Yards, man, for this. Yeah, and we can talk
The
about that a little bit later
best
too.
subscribers. Yeah. Mhm.
Man. So that was at that time. Then in 2014, thereabouts. So that was in 2012. In 2014, the book came out in 2015, the second one, Mirage of Days Old. But what had happened then was when I was at Penn State back in 2010, 2011, I had been performing some poetry and I'd put together like a pamphlet, which we called Midday Silhouettes, of some of those poems. And again, I performed it at some event as a benefit. And
Mhm.
my friend, Angeli, she had helped me design that cover for that. So she ends up founding a publishing house, together with her sorority sister and friend Debbie. They come together and they founded a publishing house, and that's one of the first quote unquote acts. They said like, oh yeah, I remember Shingi was up here back in the day. He writes poetry. Maybe I like this stuff. Maybe we can put that out. So I worked with those guys for the Mirage of Days Old. They
Mhm.
put together a great book. They were also still new, you know what I'm saying? And also, just to be
Mhm.
clear, for anybody who might be listening, the publishing industry has historically been, like many other things, particularly in these parts, has been a middle-aged to old white man dominated space.
Yeah.
That's just how it's been.
Could you? Yeah. As you
But
can only imagine, for real.
right. So you have these two young Latina women, uh, no more, neither of them was 30 at the time, so I'm thinking maybe mid,
Mhm.
really, but they're putting a good faith effort. They created a couple very very good books, even like I like the Mirage of Days Old, what it looks like, and they reached out. I think I don't know what was going on with some of the business things that they were doing. I have no gripes with them personally on the business level, but you can tell like we were really figuring things out together, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I'm not sure as to the reason why their doors closed, but I know that there was a little bit after the publication. There were some things that were just that we were struggling with, you know what I'm saying, or little
Mhm.
uh misunderstandings, you know.
Right.
No fights, nowhere. This is still some of my favorite people to this day. But just like to say, like, all right, what does this mean? You know, okay, we're feeling
Yeah.
so that also so I was emphasizing that to say like it's different from how I self-published that first effort, but
Yeah.
this in many ways still constitutes self-publishing. If you have to, what you know, some people talk about self-publishing as you actually just published it yourself, but
Mhm.
also if people don't seek you out, or if you don't have like a, to put it in music terminology, right? The difference
Mhm.
between you know, me making my own beat or having somebody else make a beat for me, I'm still independent, and that doesn't make me not independent. You know what I mean? But
Okay.
also say that what you know, you can also emphasize that I really just work by myself and I produce all my own stuff, right? It's a little bit.
Right.
Uh, so I say that to say, so we did this thing with Sugar Run Publishing, had a good
Mhm.
run. Shout out that the launch
No pun intended.
thing, huh?
Had a good run. No pun intended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If there was a term for like a really sweet run,
Yeah.
like a sugar type run. Um, so yeah, and you were there. The launch for the Mirage of Days Old, we did at the Mayan Bus Cafe in Grand Rapids. That
All
yeah,
right.
this is where this picture was taken. I think I've done like a bunch of these now, especially when Pasena came out as well. But I think this one is still my favorite. This one was so good. Uh,
Mhm.
uh, no. This is the Pasena one. The
This is
Mirage of Days
Pashana
Old.
actually.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Mirage of Days Old we did a couple of years before that, but that one was
Yeah.
incredible. You were there as well. You
Yeah.
performed a poem. People just came out, so that was beautiful. And we had, like I said, we had a good run with that. Then a few years later, another college friend of mine, Kiera Jones, um, she had started her own out of Detroit. She had started her own, again, younger black woman, right? A peer of mine. But she
Mhm.
had started so I'm always trying to, two things. On one hand, we can build something together, right? Especially in a field that has been hostile either to our stories or to us telling them, i.e., publishing.
Mhm.
Or so there's that as well. We can grow together. But I also know that there's less barriers to getting through to you, especially if you're still trying to build something. It's easier to get published. So we did that. One of the things that Kiera did a good job of right away was yeah, I paid some upfront, a decent amount upfront. Nothing that I'm complaining about, but I'm saying like what that meant then was our level of accountability to each other was a little more nuanced. So guys, I just say this to you guys across the board, that if you are in a position to, I understand sometimes we are not, but if you're in a position to, and your friends are charging for a service, please pay them, right? Please pay them. It goes a long way in one, right? In furthering their whatever they're
Yeah.
working on, but also it's like it allows you to be accountable to each other, right? Because like if somebody misses a deadline, now you can push. But if I don't pay you and you miss a deadline, oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so I'll
It
get it.
validates.
You know?
Yeah.
But that which not only compromises the work, but think about what that does to a relationship as well, right? Because it could actually be like you might get frustrated because but at the same time they might be feeling like, all right, you're putting pressure and you didn't even pay nothing. So again, please pay them. But anyway,
Please
so
pay
I
them.
paid some upfront for that, so the book was out at a certain time. I had a very good time with the readings for that. It's again, but and Pasena being largely autobiographical is the story that I've been trying to tell for a long time. So also you could argue that I self-published that, but I mean because I paid for the publishers to do it professionally, I feel less hamstrung by that tag this time around. And that one
Right.
we had a good run with. Again, I haven't, you know uh, in the words of the great Jada Kiss on the letter to Big song, I ain't touched the paper I was supposed to yet. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, to many people, because we put this work out there and we celebrate it, or I might post every day about it. It might look like I'm selling a lot, but if I posted every day that somebody bought the book for a month, that's a lot of content, but it's also 30 books. You know what I mean? So a lot of times it oversells how well we're doing. So yeah, but I've
Mhm,
had a very good run with Pashena. But I learned a lot of lessons from that one. That when the leak has finally come out, working with Carnelian Heart Publishing, I've had a very good time. Uh,
mhm.
and
Pashana is so good. Pashana, like you guys
please,
go and pick up Pashana because it is
absolutely.
actually a fire read. It is such a good read.
Yeah,
Um,
when I'm doing the leak readings, I'll be putting on for Pashena as well. I have copies of those.
mhm,
But I
good,
learned
as
so
you
much,
should.
man. I've loved that story so much. I was in Australia, Canberra. I got to do a reading out there. It's the first one. Most of the places I go to are places where I already have people or I've been invited to do something. But I was just in
Mhm,
Canberra, visiting family. My mom lives out there. So we were over there, but and she knows a few people, but a lot of the people who came in were people who were just come Australians who were coming off the street who just said there's this local author there. So that was so much fun.
mhm.
Also because it's a story, it's autobiographical. I got to do a campaign a couple of years ago where people could buy copies for the kids in our old neighborhood. So we had a dozen or so books that we gave to kids at Shannon and Rujego primary schools, which are the primary schools that
That's what's up.
where
Yeah,
the characters of the story go
on
to. So
okay.
it's been beautiful. But I learned a lot too much. I learned a lot about marketing and whatnot, um, and such, because I think less than a month into the publishing of the leak right now, I don't have the numbers concretely per se, but I wouldn't be surprised to hear that the leak has already sold about 2/3 of the
Well,
copies that
Pashana.
Pashena has sold in its entire run. Yeah.
Okay, let's go. Let's
Yeah. So,
go.
so it's been, I've really been happy with the publishers. I've really been happy with, I've also learned a lot about marketing and making use of digital
Yeah,
spaces over the years. Indeed. Yeah.
that's what's up. Now that's what's up.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and again, there's a bunch of you watching on 9 Yards on Twitter, especially a lot of you watching on Twitter, by the way.
Right.
Yeah, type in those comments, show some love, repost this. And also, we mentioned that you can't get a copy of the Mirage of Days Old, but guess what? What we're going to be doing right now, leave a comment, subscribe, but most importantly, leave a comment because we will be doing a giveaway to people that leave some comments here or let us know that you want a copy. You will get a signed copy sent to you of the leak. Hold that bad boy up to the camera for us, Shingy. There it
Indeed.
is. There it is. And we'll get it signed for you and make sure that you can get it. And Shingy, a lot of people have been wondering too,
Right.
because I left this out. What did I say? I said poet, professor, philanthropist,
Yeah.
author, of course, but rapper.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah,
What we
man. So
talking about?
that part, yeah, the sad rap album is coming up a bit later
Yeah.
this year in a couple of months. Sad
Let's
rap
go
album.
go and check out the YouTube channel. And I'll be making sure I leave the links for Shingi's page, for Clubhouse, for so you can go and grab the book on Amazon, but the YouTube as well. And one of my favorites, and you know, I love this one right here.
Uh,
I'm probably going to get copyright claimed, but whatever.
The seven stripe flag hangs loose inside of my closet. So every morning when I open it, Zimbabwe's exposed. Reminiscing on the beauty of Victoria Falls, or running wild in the streets after our warriors go. It's been a few years I've been gone from home, but my little cousin's guilt tripping. You've been gone too long. Try to test me with the slang like I forgot the lingo. How could I ever forget when I was raised by gringo?
Yeah, you're all the way in your bag on that one. Love that. Love that. And then there's also one that I actually had the chance to. There's actually a couple on the YouTube channel that I had a chance to shoot, edit. And more on the way, by the way. But this is the big Shingi bounce. Shot on the Chicago streets, and
remember this beat from the last time?
Lake Michigan.
Yeah.
We're in front of the clubs and everything.
This is the beat we did the big Shingi bounce to. The same one I inherited from Aldo. If you can hear me, I hope you're feeling proud, bro. Me, I'm still rhyming in the streets like the counter. Fun dude with the massive flow. Swagged out like a massive flow. Till the casket closed.
Now back to the bracket. Locust, flash, striped shoes.
Yeah.
Shout out to the big homie, Kalanja, man.
King David Koresh over there. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we're having fun. We're having fun tonight, everybody. We're having a lot of fun. But yeah, check out the music. I can't wait for the Sad Rap album to come through. We'll be busting that down. Can you talk a little bit about your creative process when you also are get into your rap bag as well, and also what it's like working with King Isaac. Isaac is, if a lot of people are unaware, is actually a Grammy nominated artist out of the streets, and that from our way. So it's just a huge thing for him to be part of your work. I know that much for sure.
Absolutely, man.
Actually, I'm going to just like play a little bit of this one as well.
Yeah. We love Chicago though.
Kule wafona zvakare ndikadzima runare cause if I pick up I know kuniri kugadzwatare uri kupi where's more kinda $10 ndoseka zvangu nditingogutsurira smile on my face pretending zviri kuita nobody asked kuti koko kwakadi losing my mind ndiko saka ndiri z outside looking like buruhuru remudanga inside feeling kunge ndiri munhu wemanga manga. I bet there's many friends who couldn't recognize they knew me, front row at my funeral screaming out they knew me, came out from the gutter and my elders told me go for it, made it to the top floor, got nothing to show for. And then a text from my sister, it's been long, what's the issue anyway? Why not you say that your little niece is missed here?
There it is. Okay.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So that's featuring King Isaac. Man, so the creative process, right? Now put a pin in this statement because I want to come back to this. And the defining question that I've been struggling with, and me and Isaac and other people that I create with, that I've had that I've been talking to, is this: where are they going to build your statue, right?
Okay.
So put a pin in that, and we'll come back to it. But yeah, the creative process, man, it's very similar. It's very similar in many ways. Actually, the song here starts. Not this one, Hometown Hero, right? The 7-stripe flag hangs loose inside of my closet. That's actually the first two bars of that are from the poem I call Stones Speak. It goes way back, and it goes, the 7-striped flag hangs loose inside of my closet. So every morning when I open it, Zimbabwe exposes it. And it tells of a land, a much beauteous place, a place that's as much a part of me as a scar on my face. See, it's hard for me to explain it to you by word of mouth alone, but listen close and hear the voices of the house of stone.
Okay.
So Zimbabwe literally means the houses of stone. So that's what that's a reference to. So when so it's born of the same sentiments, right? Then I just really like hip hop and doing that as well. So I was like, I could reach a whole different audience, right? Such that I bet you as many people like Hometown Hero as a song, 90% of them would not have made the connection that its origins are in this poem. You know what I mean?
Right.
So part of it is really just to reach a wider, how else can I package this to tell the same story to a different audience? Then you do that, then you put out a book like Pashena. Oh, these are the stories that Dagakura Danga Mvura never koma na wengoda. And that's like I grew up in Danga Mvura with this gang guys over there. That's the story that ends up showing up in Pashena. All right, I'm piecing it together now. Same thing with that last song that crew was playing, that the 9 was playing right now, right? Mukandi, and I'm talking about going ghost on people when you're going through it in life, and I promise you I'll be right back. If you read the leak, those sound like the experiences that this guy is also going through. You know what I mean? So it's just a matter of it's all about the creative process. It's just reconfiguring it for the space and the audience. But a lot of the stories are rooted in the same thing. I would even go as far as saying, like, even my actual scholarship, right? When I talk about, I recently had a book chapter published that was talking about ways in which young singers, of this genre in Zimbabwe called Zim dancehall, might come across as being vulgar and uncouth. But what they're actually doing is protesting the system in ways that might be recognizable to the early days of hip hop and so forth. So again, there's a lot of transliteration across these things. But to the question about where are they going to build your statue, that's probably the biggest struggle I have as a creative, because think about this, right? We are all several things in one. You know what I mean? But then the old adage says, jack of all trades, master of none. So
I feel that one so much.
so that's the thing you have to debate, right? Like, okay, what do I forfeit? Right now, I'm actually thinking we're talking about the sad rap. We're putting out an album later, right? And I feel like I'm entering a certain zone as an author in which I can be defined as an author and claim that. You know what I mean? But what about when you find out, like, oh yeah, the author, he put out a rap album. Like, okay, I don't know. Same thing that you might hear, like, oh yeah, Kevin Durant is rap. People are like, okay, man. Even if it's very, very good, you know what I mean? Or at least even if it's competitive, So that's the same thing. I think even like in the industry, right? Like to say, there aren't too many Jamie Foxxes out there who are like Grammy winners and Oscar winners. You know what I mean? A lot of times it's almost like, are you trading something? You know what I'm saying? Off. So when I say, where are they going to build your statue? You know what I'm saying? A lot of times historically statues are built at maybe sites of battle, or cities in which you served, or places that you saved, or places that you founded, right? Or things like that. So when I ask that, it's like, does me rapping, right? I'm not saying this is a fact, but I'm saying, and maybe not doing that as well as I write, which again, we're always going to be good at one thing more than another, right? Does that take away from my credentials from my legacy as an author?
Right.
Or is the solution then to make it seem like I don't really care? I'm just kind of rapping on the side, you know what I'm saying? A la the way Stephen King has a band. But it's not, So these are decisions that you constantly have to make, right? And me and King Isaac talk about this all the time, because he's a Grammy-nominated reggae artist, but he also likes to sing like GT and other things like that. I'm like, King, do you ever think about your reggae fans thinking like, all right, man, he's lost it when you start doing this other stuff? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
But also, at what expense? Are you just gonna stop doing things that you really want to do because of that?
That's
You know what I mean?
I feel like that's the borderline, right? Like, do you love it? Well, then do it. You know what I mean?
But are they
If
going
you
to build
love
you a
it,
statue, though, crew? Are they going to build you a statue?
I
Tell me.
mean, I don't want a statue.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get that plaque. Thank you guys for 21,000 subscribers today. 2121. 20K. I
Yeah.
absolutely love that. Love you guys. But no, when you're talking, well, like the thing that actually gets me the most is that line about the jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If that's what you're saying, like that's the opportunity cost of like pursuing one thing over the other. Like there was a good time that I was just going to be doing like 3D art on like Blender, that type of stuff. During the height of COVID, that's when I started this YouTube channel. I was like, oh, I really want to edit and get into the process of like making videos and like hopefully eventually being able to work on a movie or something. Yeah. But there was also that very big urge of me, like I was drawing a lot and I was, messing around with Blender, and I was like, oh, I kind of want to go all in on this. But at the same time, so like that's the opportunity cost. Like I could, and there's been times where I wanted just to dabble the most. I got this piano behind me, right? And I want to do, play piano a lot.
Yeah.
But that also means like, I'm not going to be getting to these videos. Right.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of the opportunity cost of like being a jack of all trades, a master of none. Like where do you have to put your focus onto?
Right. Absolutely right. So I think there's the time constraint, and I think that's something that that there is no navigating that. I mean you have to navigate. There is no running away from it. But when I think about the work that you do and what maybe I consider to be a parallel or a crossroads or a fork in the road you may have reached as 9 is, all right, man, I put out Atlanta video 1, 2, 3, 4, 10,000, 20,000, 100,000, 200,000 views. And now I'm talking about, I don't know, Rick and Morty. I don't know, some other shit that you do.
Yeah.
97 views or something like that, right?
Right, yeah.
Now you're there, now the question is like, all right, man, I really want to talk about this too.
Yeah.
But do I want to be the impeccable million view a video Atlanta guy? And that's all you know me for.
Yeah. Right.
Or do I moderate that a little bit and do this other stuff that I want, but knowing very well that perhaps some people who came here just for Atlanta are not really sticking around if they see that.
I mean, that's true. Like, I mean, but at the same time, I already have my statue built on my Atlantic commentary. Like, I'm already goated. I get to play around. I get to play around a little bit.
Right.
A series finale video coming eventually, guys.
That's actually a key point, right? Like that statue exists already, which is again why Stephen King can be posting about his band, as many times as you want to be like, oh yeah, that's Stephen King, right? He's a goat over here. You know what I mean? Whereas right now, when you're still trying to carve out a name for yourself, like Shingi Mavima, the author. No, but I know Shingi the rapper.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's a little bit of configuring that. But I'm going all in on the writing for sure. It's just that I'm having to think about how I'm going to talk about or market the music when it comes out, because you saw I was recently on the news talking about the leak.
I saw that. Instagram posts for that. And
so
congratulations on that. That's awesome.
Indeed, brother. But the thing that I'm saying is like, I don't know if I want to be on the news talking about the rap album, for example. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
because I don't want to. I enjoy it very much, but I don't want it to be my leading sort of
Yeah.
identity at this point. You know what I mean?
But yeah, and again, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. There's so many of you guys watching from different platforms. You know, we got it streaming on Twitter, we got it streaming on YouTube. And I love that you guys are tuning in for sure. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask everybody, like, leave some questions out there. If you have any questions before we wrap up. Again, Shingi Mavima, he's the professor of African American Studies, African Studies at Toledo University. He is a rapper, he is a poet, he's a philanthropist, and he's talking about his new book, The Leak, right now on available now on Amazon. I'll be making sure that I leave a link to The Leak on the description below. But really quick, can you go? Yeah, just go off a little bit. Can you take over the show? Take over the show and just like let us know what you have an event tomorrow.
Yes. All right. So this part, if I said like trying to find publishers is the part that I don't really care for. My favorite part of the process is writing. I love that. But my second favorite part, and it's not by a long way, is when I go out and meet people and we talk about the book. It's always great. I get to read. Again, you guys may not, maybe you don't watch your videos back or you don't do all this thing. So that's how it is with me and reading. My stories. I
Mm-hmm.
don't. A lot of people tell me details, and then that I'm like, oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that. You know what I mean? After some time.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it gives me time to relive some of those moments. It's almost like, remember the joy I said I feel when I write? It's like
Mm-hmm.
I'm really experiencing it again when I do this. Then we have the conversations, and people always pick up like fascinating angles, right? I spoke about about that girl who was talking about why didn't the boys play with it, things like that. But
Mm-hmm.
in these readings, people always have like, oh my god, I really like this character, and I'm like, man, that was like a character that I've never even really thought about them since I wrote about them, but you also learn to say that you as an artist are the visionary, right? So even things that you may not necessarily put a whole lot of thought into, may still sound amazing. You know what I mean? The same way that if you're like an amazing singer, you may just hit a note that people are like, what was that? You know what I'm saying? But for you, it's like every day. So I've learned over the years to not to love everything that people love about
Mm-hmm.
my stories, even if it's not the thing that would stand out to me. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
doing this reading in Lansing tomorrow, it'll be the first one. So I'm excited. It's the first one for the league. I was in Grand Rapids today, setting up, having conversations about the ones that I'll be doing here. More information about that coming up. Recently, on the strength of that little news clip I was on, some folks out in New York have hit me up and asked me to come through. So I look forward to that. It's like in a month time. More
Okay.
details with that as I so it's again. I'm feeling really good
Yeah.
about this.
Might have to have you come out to Chicago. A couple places.
Man, I'm
Yeah.
already in. I'm. If you saw all three videos that Nine showed you on here were shot in Chicago. I love Chicago, so I'll be over there anyway. And if we can do some readings, uh, even better. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is very important for me, to be adding to a growing literary African tradition. A
Mm-hmm.
legendary writer known as Dambudzo Marechera out of Zimbabwe.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to an interview. He passed away in '87.
I packed my things and left.
Yeah, he got his things and left. Yeah, for sure. But before he did, he was doing this interview, and he was sort of talking about what he viewed as the two schools African literature that existed at the time. One was the traditionalists, which is where people like Chinua Achebe of Things Fall Apart fame, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, who wrote books like A Grain of Wheat and Weep Not Child, Wallace Soyinka, right? So those are the traditionalists. And he was positioning himself as, he said, we are the modernists. So this is sort of this post-colonial writers who were, the traditionalists were talking about a lot about rural life and maybe pre-colonial and clashes with the colonial system, right? But the modernists were talking more about urban Africa and so forth. So a lot of the 80s and 90s are post-colonial or Africa on the brink of post-colonialism. Then now those are the two parts he spoke about, right? But then he passed on. And I believe that if we were to extend that scholarship now, or that sort of trajectory, there's a third group to which I belong, which we can call the Afropolitan class. You know what I'm saying? So the traditionalist, modernist, and the Afropolitan.
Okay.
So Afropolitan, again, it's a portmanteau of the words cosmopolitan and African,
Okay.
And these are the folks, and this is you see it in writing, but it's also the space that people like Trevor Noah occupy, and Burna Boy occupies, and Tyler, is it Tyler with the water song? Yeah, Tyler occupies, and dare I say Nine occupies, right? What do I mean by that? Is this prior to this very moment we are living in right now, in this Afro beats and all this moment, to be African and have a worldwide audience and appreciation was to be very exotic. Oh, we're rolling out this very strange African thing, right? And
right, yeah.
And that's, I'm not saying this to slide it, but I'm saying like even you look at like the music of people like Black Smith, Lady Smith,
Black Mendoza, yeah.
It's beautiful, beautiful music, but it's also very much, we don't have anything like this over here.
Right, yeah.
So the Afropolitan is sort of talking about these people who identify with their Africanness prominently, right? But also they are not doing a thing. They're hosting the Daily Show. They're in the Avengers. They are in they are taking the lead on breaking down the Oscar nominees. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
This guy, raps in 3 or 4 languages, right? And we see it even in sport with people like Giannis and
right, yeah,
and, all these folks who. So yeah, this is I'm just very proud, man. I'm just very proud to be part of that.
That's what's
so even within literature, we see people like Chimamanda Adichie, people who are talking about their lived experiences in maybe 3 or 4 different continents, and doing it in a very relatable, very digestible way. There's some issues, of course, is with who gets access to be in spaces like that, but that's a different conversation. But there's living in an Afropolitan.
Afropolitan, that's the word. Okay.
Indeed.
Okay,
indeed.
so it's in a sense you could call it like post-diasporism too.
Yes.
Post-diasporism, something like that.
Indeed. And it's also, right, it's post-diasporism, right? But in such a way that the being themselves may not necessarily be diasporic, which is to say, Afropolitanism is also, you could also be, a lot of creatives who are in this space on the African continent. You know what I mean? I was listening to one of my favorite, I don't know if he's on the continent, but it wouldn't matter anyway, you know what I'm saying? Because you might be streaming from there. But one of my favorite WWE, this thing that you do.
Superstars?
No, man, not superstars.
Oh, streamers or just like
they
content creators.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, okay, I have been reading a lot of his stuff. Then I read in his thing that he says he's got a YouTube channel, tuned into it. Sounds like a lot of my friends growing up. So I look, wait, is this guy from Zimbabwe? Turns out he's South African, right? But those are neighboring countries. Some of the accents are similar. But I'm like, the fact that one of the leading, I think his channel is called Age of Wrestling.
Okay.
It's a South African kid, you know what I'm saying? And he's talking
Yeah.
about, the Montreal screw job, where back in the day, they'll be like, yo, man, leave that for those guys, you know what I'm saying? Talk about some street fighting and whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
I really love that space, yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, that is very interesting. Okay. Wow. Wow. All right. And we could probably go all night. But we got another comment here from Filmage. Filmage, always locking it down. Thank you. Afropolitan is an awesome name for a production studio. Yeah, that's actually pretty good.
Oh, get it right now. Get it right now. Because after this, I think the world's gonna know about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, even post stream, we'll figure it out. If you want a signed copy, we'll just be picking it up at random of the leak. We'll be able to send that to you, and then probably some other little goodies as well. Just make sure that you leave a comment that's either on Twitter if you're watching from there, or if you're going to be watching from 9 Nerd Yards or even Nerds at Night. Please let us know. It's been a wonderful time talking to you, Shingi. It's been amazing. And again, you will be in Lansing tomorrow at the Taste in Alobosa Bar tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern time to 8 p.m. doing a book reading of the leak. So if you're in the area, go and check that out. Is there anything else that you would like to plug, or let us know about?
Man, just check me out. I'm sure as Nine does, you'll see my my social medias in the description box. I'm on a lot of the important ones, I'm saying Facebook, Instagram, X, LinkedIn, TikTok, so YouTube. So please just check me out. I like to stay in touch with people. I feed off of this. This is what motivates me, what keeps me going. So love you all very much, and thank you for having me. Indeed.
Absolutely. And I should actually be going live again literally in 20 to 30 minutes. We will be on Nerds at Night exclusively with the Drunk Banthas, just talking about a bunch of random stuff. So if you haven't gotten enough of my face yet, you can go and check that out. But for right now, with Shingi, Dr. Shingi Mavima, we are out. We'll leave you with this.
But I wanted you to know murimo mupfungwa mepo dzidzi nombondisunga asi nyangwe zvakadaro nkandiko kandinouya aiwa munakundituka ngoti tete zveupenyu zvinombondi